Picture a man whose words shook the very foundations of established norms, a man named Jesus. Over 2,000 years ago, a child was born in the humble town of Bethlehem, who would grow up to become one of the most influential figures in human history. This child, named Jesus, was no ordinary individual. His life was marked by extraordinary events and teachings that continue to fascinate scholars and theologians alike. As a young man, he began a public ministry that challenged the religious, social, and political constructs of his time. His teachings, unconventional and radical, stirred the hearts of many and provoked the ire of others. Jesus was a figure of paradoxes, a carpenter's son who claimed heavenly lineage, a teacher who had no formal education, yet his wisdom confounded the learned scholars of his day. He was a pacifist who incited significant change, a man of humble beginnings who attracted followers from all walks of life. His teachings were not just about morality and spirituality, they were revolutionary, advocating for love and kindness in a society steeped in law and tradition. He championed the cause of the poor, the marginalized, the sinners, and the outcasts, challenging the social hierarchies of his time. He dared to question the religious authorities, to break the Sabbath, to speak of God as his Father, and to proclaim the arrival of a kingdom not of this world. His audacity was unsettling, his charisma undeniable. His words, backed by miraculous deeds, won him a devoted following and also powerful enemies. The enigma of Jesus lies not only in his divine claims, but also in his human experiences. He laughed, he wept, he suffered, and he triumphed. He lived and he died, only to rise again, according to Christian belief. Yet the zenith of his teachings came at an event we now know as the Sermon on the Mount. It was here that he laid out his vision for a new way of life, a radical departure from the prevailing ethos of his time. But that, dear listeners, is a tale for the next scene. Jesus, with his followers, embarked on a journey towards a mountaintop, a place destined to witness history. This was no ordinary trek. It was a pilgrimage of faith, each step echoing with anticipation. As they navigated the rugged terrain, the crowd grew. People from all walks of life, drawn by a magnetic pull, joined this journey. They were rich and poor, young and old, believers and skeptics, all united by their curiosity about this man, Jesus. The air was thick with expectancy. Whispers of prophecy filled the breeze. Stories of healing and miracles swirled among the crowd, adding fuel to the growing fire of anticipation. Everyone was waiting for the moment when Jesus would speak, when he would share his wisdom. It was a moment that was about to etch itself into the annals of time. Little did they know, the words spoken on that mountaintop would echo through centuries. As Jesus ascended the mount, a hush fell over the crowd. The sermon was about to begin. The air was thick with anticipation as the murmuring of the crowd quieted to a whisper. There was a tangible sense of something momentous about to occur. This was not an ordinary gathering. This was a pivotal moment, a turning point in history, though those present could hardly grasp the full extent of what was about to unfold. The crowd was vast, spreading across the hillside like a sea of humanity. It said that there were thousands present, a testament to the magnetic pull of the man who was about to speak. Men, women, and children, they all gathered, each carrying their own stories, their hopes, their fears. They were drawn to Jesus, a man whose reputation for wisdom and miraculous deeds had spread like wildfire. Jesus stood there, a simple man in simple garb. His attire reflected the humble life he led. No royal robes or fancy adornments, just a plain tunic of common people. Yet his presence was anything but ordinary. There was an aura about him, a sense of peace and authority that was impossible to ignore. As he stood there ready to speak, one could not help but feel a sense of awe. The atmosphere was electric with tension. There was an air of expectancy as all eyes were fixed on Jesus. People leaned in, straining to catch every word. The first words he spoke echoed across the mount, a gentle yet firm voice that commanded attention. He started with what would later be known as the Beatitudes, a set of blessings that turned the conventional wisdom of the world upside down. As he spoke, the crowd listened intently, hanging on to every word that flowed from his lips. They were captivated, riveted by the profound wisdom and the compassionate heart of this man who spoke like no one they had ever heard before. The crowd listened intently, captivated by the man standing before them. With a voice carrying authority and compassion, Jesus began his sermon with the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes, a set of blessings, are profound in their simplicity and depth. Each one begins with the phrase, "Blessed are," setting a tone of divine favor. They encompass the poor in spirit, those who mourn, the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, and those persecuted for righteousness' sake. These blessings were not what the crowd expected. They were accustomed to a society where blessings were associated with wealth, power, and status. Yet here was Jesus, saying the opposite, that the blessed ones were the poor, the meek, the mourners. It was a jolt to their system, a challenge to their established norms. But these weren't just words thrown into the wind. They were the foundational blocks of a new kingdom, a new way of living. They were not about external circumstances, but about internal attitudes. They were about humility, about peace, about mercy, about purity, about a thirst for righteousness. The Beatitudes were a radical departure from the conventional wisdom of the day. They turned societal norms upside down, presenting a stark contrast to the values of the Roman Empire, where power and conquest were prized above all else. For the crowd that day, these blessings would have been as bewildering as they were captivating. They painted a picture of a kingdom where the last would be first, and the first would be last. A kingdom where the meek would inherit the earth, and the peacemakers would be called the children of God. In Christian theology, the Beatitudes are seen as a description of the character of a true follower of Christ. They are not a list of requirements, but rather a reflection of the transformation that occurs when one's life is surrendered to Jesus. Each Beatitude was a radical call to a new way of living, challenging the status quo. Jesus continued his sermon, delving deeper into his revolutionary teachings. The crowd, captivated by his words, listened as he spoke of radical concepts that challenged their understanding of morality and spirituality. First, he addressed the concept of love and forgiveness, not just for friends and family, but also for enemies. He urged his followers to love their adversaries and pray for those who sought to harm them, a notion that, at the time, was as revolutionary as it was difficult to comprehend. He presented love not as a feeling, but as an active choice, a deliberate act of will. Next, he moved on to the subject of prayer. Here, Jesus introduced the idea of private, humble prayer, a stark contrast to the ostentatious public prayers of the Pharisees. He advised his followers to seek solitude when praying, to establish a personal connection with God. He taught them the Lord's Prayer, a template for communicating with the divine, filled with adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. Finally, there was the Golden Rule, a simple yet profound guideline for ethical conduct. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This concept, easy to understand yet challenging to implement, represented the essence of empathy and mutual respect. It served as a compass, guiding followers to treat each other with kindness, fairness, and compassion. These teachings, though challenging, offered a new way to perceive the world. They encouraged people to transcend their prejudices, to treat one another with kindness, and to seek a personal relationship with God. They asked for more than just obedience to the law. They asked for a transformation of the heart. These teachings left a profound impact not just on the listeners of that time, but on the entire course of human history. As Jesus concluded his sermon, the crowd was left in a state of awe and reflection. The multitude of people, a sea of faces, were captivated by the profound wisdom that flowed from the mouth of Jesus. His words, like a balm, had touched their hearts and minds, stirring within them a sense of wonder, and yes, perhaps even a hint of fear. The air was thick with anticipation, the silence only broken by the rustling of robes and the soft whispering of the wind. There on that mount, they had heard a message so powerful, so transformative, that it shook them to their very core. They watched as Jesus, dressed in his simple, humble attire, descended the mount, his mission accomplished. The Sermon on the Mount was not just a discourse, it was a challenge, a call to action, a call to change. And it was a call that resonated deeply within the hearts of those who were present. In the days that followed, the words of Jesus reverberated through the towns and villages. People couldn't help but talk about the teachings they had heard. The Beatitudes, the Golden Rule, the call for love and forgiveness. These were not just teachings. They were a revolution of thought, a new way of living. But with revolution came resistance. The radical teachings of Jesus were not welcomed by everyone. The religious leaders of the time felt threatened. They saw in Jesus a disruptor, a threat to their power and authority. And so, the wheels of betrayal were set in motion, leading to the inevitable, the crucifixion of Jesus. Yet even in his death, Jesus left behind a legacy that would endure. His words, his teachings continue to echo through the corridors of time, challenging us, inspiring us, reminding us of the power of love, compassion, and forgiveness. The Sermon on the Mount, a testament to the revolutionary teachings of Jesus, continues to inspire and challenge us today. The echoes of that sermon still resonate, shaping the moral and ethical compass of millions around the world. From the dusty paths of the Mount to the bustling streets of today, the Sermon on the Mount continues to be a beacon of hope, love, and righteousness. It has shaped laws, inspired leaders, and guided the actions of everyday people. Its teachings permeate our culture, from the music we hum to the stories we tell. The Beatitudes, "Blessed are the meek, blessed are the peacemakers," are more than just verses from an ancient text. They are a roadmap to a life of compassion, humility, and peace. The sermon's influence extends beyond the church and into the realm of social justice, driving movements that seek to uplift the downtrodden and empower the marginalized. Indeed, the words spoken on that mountaintop have transcended time and space, forever etched in the annals of human history.